but I masturbated on a plane,
Nice.
like flying from Malaysia back to Chicago. And I was like, this is so funny. This is like some Louis C.K. shit. Let me tell this at an open mic. And I did, and it was awful. No one laughed. No one laughed about jerking off on plane.
That was your first ever open
Yeah.
mic. Okay. Today, we talk about, boom, we are live, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not live, but hey, whatever.
Live enough.
Hey, so this is episode something. I always lose track because I'm always behind on the editing. I'm sorry, man. But I'd like to welcome a very special guest, Bill Beteet, which I now found out from last night also goes by William the third,
yes.
right? Okay. And I'll let you talk about yourself in a second. But what I know about you so far, I've met you on the open mic circuit. So you had a show last night, obviously, a TEDx speaker, apparently. I'd like to hear about that a little bit. Published in Time and Huffington. Okay. BuzzFeed triggered. Headliner in Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Juris Doctor, a.k.a. lawyer, right? And then Sirius XM as well. And you have a SoundCloud. Is this a rapper thing?
No, even though I look like a SoundCloud rapper. I wish, man. I'm going to come out with my rap album sooner or later, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, before I forget too, your Instagram, Bill Beteet, but you're also on Twitter at Bill Betweet.
Bill Betweet, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at your layout here. I just noticed how like pristine this thing is. It's like pick, tweet, pick, tweet, pick, tweet. So that's clever.
Thank
nice,
you.
man. All right, so welcome. God damn it. It's late. I don't know why the soundboard sucks. But anyway, yeah, tell us about yourself, man. Welcome.
Oh, thanks. And thanks for doing such a great introduction. It's Edinburgh, though.
Is it? It's Edinburgh. So did you spell it wrong?
Did I spell it wrong?
No, I'm just reading off your bio.
I think they pronounce it like strange or whatever because they're Scottish and they're weird people. But yeah, dude, life's good. I'm a lawyer, comedian, barely a lawyer, like only in passing the bar and like finishing law school. I've never practiced.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so was that something you did? Because usually how I like to start these is like, what was your comedy come up? So like, when did you start comedy? How is that related, if it is at all, to the lawyer thing versus whatever else was going on before that? Like, what was going on there?
Yeah. So I started comedy in Chicago. Weird enough, I was
and that's where you're from?
I'm not from there. That's where I went to law school.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I masturbated on a plane,
Nice.
like flying from Malaysia back to Chicago. And I was like, this is so funny. This is like some Louis C.K. shit. Let me tell this at an open mic. And I did, and it was awful. No one laughed. No one laughed about jerking off on plane.
That was your first ever open mic? Okay.
And I had done it like once or twice before that, but then I had sworn off comedy to focus on law school. But that time, I don't know what it was. Somebody invited me out again, and then I started performing all the time. And then on Yom Kippur, I'm not Jewish, but I observe Yom Kippur. I had a job offer to be a lawyer for the Marine Corps, and all I had to do was do the physical fitness, then go to boot camp, and basically it was going to be like a done deal. The guy hadn't got back to me for like 3 weeks, and to set up the appointment, and then I did Yom Kippur, and I thought about if today was my last day live, what would I have done differently about my life? I was like, I don't really give a fuck about being a lawyer for the Marine Corps. I kind of just want to move to New York and do comedy. And so at that point, he actually texted me that day, and I was like, no, dude, I found another job. Canceled all my other interviews, and basically focused really hard on comedy. Then my first/second year of comedy, I did like 365 consecutive days, and that's why I did a TED Talk on and everything like that.
365 days of comedy?
Yeah. So I performed every day, like usually 3 to 5 times a night.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I was terrible though, and I actually got worse. I was like, no, man, I'm taking this super seriously. But yeah, and then I ran a show at the Laugh Factory Friday night show called the Young Hustle Show. It ends up being the biggest show in town. And then so it was like a cool experience. I really just loved comedy, and I loved because like I was a dating coach, and so I was used to rejection, so bombing didn't really bother me. And
Interesting. Yeah, I remember us talking about that briefly last night.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that was like a real thing you were doing. Are you still doing that?
So I coach people online still, but I kind of tailored off of that and kind of just moved it solely towards like business stuff and business consulting, with using some of the frameworks from game in that respect, and not like the game where it's like, yeah, you know what you want to do during this meeting, pull out like magic cards, right. Some magic tricks, but just kind of overall like conversational dynamics and flow.
Gotcha. Okay. How important is peacocking really?
I see. Here's the thing: is so like I think that
because I only know 2 pickup artists, quote unquote, if you will.
Yeah.
One is the guy on TV, and then you, and both of you wearing these fucking.
What ended up happening with my fashion was it kind of just happened like naturally, like just like I just started like testing out stuff and like doing too much and everything like that. I don't think peacocking is necessary at all. Actually, I think it actually gets in the way. My friends who have the highest leg count dress generic as fuck.
Highest leg count?
Leg count. So like the most amount of
leg count.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like 200, 300 women, but like they're like, you know, they're just like a t-shirt and jeans guy. They're not even that great of looking.
Right.
Because what it ends up being is like a girl can paint who they want them to be on top of them. So it's kind of like a blank canvas. Whereas like the whole concept of peacocking was that you stand out and have attention in a room that you don't even need to basically garner yourself, right?
Interesting.
And it started off with really audacious outfits like, like massive hats, stuff that you'd never wear, completely ridiculous. Right. And then, but yeah, to me, I just like dressing fucking a little bit weird. So,
okay, all right. And how much of that has to do with your background? Because your dad is black, your mom is Indian.
Yeah.
Right. So, any fashion component from that, or this was all just on your own, or what's?
Mostly on my own. It was just kind of just like, I think putting on muscle was like the first part in kind of like changing my fashion. And then when I moved, so I did post-grad work in the UK. I was living in London and I was living in Camden Town. It's kind of like a grunge scene.
Okay.
Moved from there to Chicago and I had like kind of like a fashion like crisis where I don't know. Like Chicago is everyone's just like generic. You know what I'm saying? Everyone's like, I'm just trying to be the same as everybody else. It's like the capital of middle America. Okay. And I didn't fit in with that paradigm. And then I just started wearing clothes from Zara. And then the clothes just got tighter and tighter. And then, yeah.
Here we are. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's that part of it. And then the TEDx talk. So that was just like, hey, I've done 365 days of comedy and I wear tight clothes. Can I do a talk? How's that work?
So I have a big following on Quora, which is a question and answering platform. Yeah. And so like one of my followers nominated me to do one. And then I just shoehorned it was funny because I was telling people like, yeah, I'm going to do a TED talk for this. The intention was always to do a TED talk for it, but I had no idea how to get a TED talk. And then randomly, like 2 weeks before I finished, one of my followers had just been like, hey, like I nominated you to do a TED talk on my thing.
Gotcha. So are these all from Game? The Quora following?
No, I did a lot of life advice and stuff like that. Okay. And so, I used to be a drug addict. And so I have like kind of a very disparate kind of like stuff. And so I was able to talk about like, yeah, if you want to wake up at 3:30 in the morning to train, blah, 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 this is how you do it and stuff like that. Some of it was game component as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why Quora? Because you're probably the only person I've ever known.
Yeah.
Physically to exist on Quora?
Because I realized how easy it was to generate a following at the time. And so I figured out the algorithm and I ended up going from like 100 followers to, like 70,000 within a year.
Jesus Christ.
And I had like 28 million reads. And then I was like channeling that into my YouTube. And so I got like 6,000 subscribers that year.
Nice.
And so like mainly I was just using it as a platform of self-exposure. And it was also a long form way to basically kind of have people bond with you. So like where someone sees your tweet, it's hard for them to get invested with you as an individual. There's limited connection. But someone reads your answer, they feel like really connected to you. And like I even had people like fly out to Edinburgh from Amsterdam to like see me perform and shit, like kind of like real crazy stuff. But then I stopped doing it after a while. I was just like, all right.
Interesting. How long ago was this? Roughly?
It was like about a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay. So not that long ago. Okay. All right. Is Quora still like an active platform?
Yeah, but like they changed the algorithm. Okay. And so I didn't want to waste answers. So there's like basically questions that are highly followed. And I wanted to keep those for whenever I had a profit incentive rather than just trying to use it to build a following on YouTube, because basically YouTube, as you know, like the algorithm on YouTube is pretty difficult as well. And so I was just like, I don't want to just channel people here and try to make it off of AdSense or some weird way like that. And so what I did was I just started funneling my following into coaching.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's smart. I should probably do that, man, but I feel like I just don't. I don't know. I think a component of this is a lot of, what's the word? It's not analysis. It's like self-awareness to some extent. And also just like, I'll give you an example. So like I'll talk about a medical topic. I'll talk about whatever I think I know well, but I may find it boring, for example. So I won't be like, oh, no one wants to hear about this. This is boring. But then if I had a third party in my head to be like, oh, no, dude, someone would really appreciate this kind of knowledge, you should probably like put it up on Quora or YouTube or whatever. It's like what's your sense of like your self-awareness, I guess, for doing that. You know what I mean?
I think self-awareness works against confidence a lot of times, so I'm selectively self-aware. Like there's like huge pockets of my life where I will purposely not be self-aware because if I was completely self-aware, I wouldn't do it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who am I like to give advice to people, blah, blah, blah. That voice definitely occurs. I just don't listen to it.
Right.
And then I will just kind of create a space to where I'm like, all right, I can eventually find a way to make this interesting.
Sure.
And I think taste is a huge component of it as well. So like, if you can just be like, I might find this boring, but is this pleasing? Like, is this pleasing to read? Is this pleasing to watch? Right? Whether or not the topic, like I've been watching a lot of stuff on prisons lately, like about busting cheeks and shit like that. Like, you know, like cheek busting and like splitting wigs and shit. And, you know, like it's just instantly like that guy understood that was funny. And so he kind of explored that topic more and more. So I think at the beginning, almost always there's no reason why you should do it. But if you invest deep enough into something, there's totally reasons why. But
I'm not arguing the reasons. I'm just saying, like, how do you decide which one? Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. It's not only thinking like, oh, this, I deserve to talk about this, but it's also a component of like, okay, well, what am I going to talk about? That's also interesting. Like, how does that taste develop? Because there's so many things I know that I just don't find interesting.
Yeah.
But other people clearly would, and I just don't put it out there. It's like, how do you connect the dots of like what's not only interesting, but also you know about it, and also you should bring it to the table. Like that's.
I didn't really think about them that much. So I was just like, I think this is interesting. A lot of the stuff was just like really cultivating for my own taste. So I was just like, oh, I think this is really, really, I'm really hyped up on nihilism right now. Let me fucking talk about it or whatever like that. And I didn't really get caught up in whether or not I was authority on the subject almost ever. I because the concept of authority is dumb.
Yeah.
Like for example, like most therapists are like, you know, like, yeah, we're like the stewards on what human behavior is like. But I look at their life, I'm like, I don't want to be this fucking person. You know, like, you know, why should I fucking listen to you? You don't like the therapists have a huge problem. So like when you're a dating coach, part of like you're shepherding a guy through this kind of concept of lack of self-worth, and like they just don't think they deserve to date anybody.
Right.
And what you like, so they'll be like, oh, I've been in therapy for like 10 years and like they still have not been laid. Then you talk to them and you're like, oh, you work them through a couple of these things, and then they end up meeting girls and having better relationships. So I think like part of it is just like not buying into the accreditation concept of society either. Where you can be a specialist, like you can talk about philosophy even if you don't have a PhD. Yeah. Actually, you're probably better off because most fucking people have a PhD in philosophy are fucking lame. You know,
damn son, where'd you find this?
Fuck yeah,
shots fired,
doctor. You know,
well, I think I agree for any of these soft sciences, but like for the
100% hard sciences,
for the hard shit, it's like, dude, I want my engineer accredited or whatever, right? But although I don't even know if they get accreditation. I think they just get hired and do shit. I don't know.
Which is even scarier, right?
Well, not really, because someone had to hire them, right? So unlike, it's not like you have independent contractor engineers. I guess you could, but like they have to have some kind of following or touted for something. Same thing with like a philosophy guy. If they have a lot of good Yelp reviews, then maybe you'll go and check out their philosophy. I don't know.
Well, I definitely agree with you on the hard science thing, and I think that's one of the things that distinguishes the West from like East in terms of like accreditation issues. Is like there's massive accreditation issues with doctors and stuff, like especially like India and Bangladesh and stuff like that. Whereas in America, like, you know, like you guys go through all these fucking tests. Like by the time they get somewhere, it's like they really know their shit. Right. And that's why.
Well, actually, the sad thing is I meet a lot of dumb motherfuckers.
Really?
I've gotten through the whole thing. I'm just like, how did you get this far? It's mind blowing sometimes. The kind of decisions some of these doctors make. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. I don't even have anyone in mind. I see it constantly, whether it was in training or, mostly in training, where I would just like, we'd get funneled in patients from like all over the area, right? And you would read these notes by these doctors, and I'd be like, why the fuck did you do that? That makes zero sense. So I don't know. Or maybe just the documentation was. What's that?
What made you want to become a doctor?
Well, I was good at math and science, and I was like, all right, well, what can I do with this that isn't going to keep me broke? Because I'm trying to turn this into a stand-up joke so bad, but it's like I had two main motivations to like get rich, which was the foul odor of like garage sale, yard sale clothes, and then the second thing was like my dad gathering us, it felt like once a week, to like chop up rebate coupons and like mail them in to save like, I don't know, $50, $70, something like that, which was significant at the time, but it's just like, it wasn't worth it. So that was like one of my main motivators was money, but like clearly, and I've said this countless times, but not to you obviously, but if money's the only motivation, you're not going to last. Like I've seen so many people drop out of medical school, switch careers, burn out, whatever. If you do it just for money purposes, but like it definitely was a factor. I'm not going to hide from that because I could have been a nurse, I could have been a pharmacist, I considered all these options, and then when I sat back, I was like, all right, well, the quote best option for me is doctor, and I'm good at it, so I'm going to do it. So I actually remember halfway through medical school, I was at one of those breaking moments where I was like, dude, this fucking sucks. So I was thinking about going and getting into comedy then. I was starting to write jokes. I was too scared to do open mics, but like I was still writing them down. I was consuming all this fucking comedy. I even started looking into any and all different fields to go into. I maybe read one of your posts. I don't know. And then at the end of it, I was just like, yeah, dude, I don't think I'm going to be good at anything other than this doctor thing. So I just buckled down, got through somehow, and then now I'm at the other end of it. I'm like, oh, this is amazing because my job is great. The staff, the patients, the population in Iowa, they're super appreciative. I bring a very clear service to the humanity there, so that part's awesome,
And you're in Iowa like what once a month?
Once a month, but 2 weeks a month essentially. Occasionally it'll be 3 weeks if I'm trying to like catch a holiday because they pay more on holidays and there's less work. So it's like, why wouldn't I do that, right? But outside that, it's usually 2 weeks there, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks there. So,
okay, that's what's up.
Yeah, man, it's fucking dope.
Yeah.
So not having an alarm clock when I'm out here is nice. Doing the comedy thing out here is amazing. And that's kind of everyone always asks me like, oh, you think you'll ever leave medicine? It's like, I don't think so, man. Because like, A, it feeds a lot of my content, and B, if I have a bad set, which happens very often these days because I'm only 6, 7, 8 months in, then I can always like be like, all right, well, at least I have this other thing that's like kind of legit. You know
yeah, 100%.
Because I never used to understand why artists, even just like A-list fucking Hollywood people, would like have these breakdowns or whatever, or just like get depressed or like things would happen. And then I finally realized what it was. It's just like if your whole existence is like a subjective soft science / creative endeavor, then if you falter at any point, it's going to hit you hard because then you'll be like, what the fuck is this really? Like, do I really matter? Does any of this matter? Blah, 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 blah. But like at the very least with me, I could always go back to being like, you know what? I fucking saved lives, bitch. Like, what are you going to tell me? Like, oh, I sucked tonight. I bombed. All right. Ooh, yeah. Cool. Like, whatever,
Well, have you noticed? So I kind of noticed whenever I was doing comedy in Chicago, less so here, but that's because I'm not really part of the community in the same way. But that it felt like the more that you were doing outside of comedy, the more you had going for you, the less you were kind of accepted by the scene. Did you feel any of that since?
Honestly, actually, I've been trying to craft like a beautiful, not story, but like encapsulation of this thing because I go through that and I've gone through that my whole life. So I'm a doctor, but I'm also a comedian. So I don't feel like I belong with the doctors because I just think doctors are boring mostly. So I prefer hanging out with comics, but then comics don't want to hang out with me potentially. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's kind of victimizing, but it feels that way because it's like, dude, you're not really us. You're like your own thing, sort of. Because like, who's this doctor showing up trying to be a comedian? At the very least, that first impression, right? And then you throw in that with everything else that I've been through. So like, is he a New Yorker or is he an Iowan? Like when I'm in Iowa, I'm the New Yorker. When I'm here, I'm the Iowan, right? So it's like I deal with that. Then you deal with, my parents. They're growing up Middle Eastern in a whole different society.
Totally thought you were like Italian. I was like, look, this Italian dude.
Yeah, it's just a mustache. Man, yeah. But no, I get that all the time. I get usually Italian, Greek, and then if I have a very heavy tan, I get Mexican sometimes. Yeah. Like, I get everything under the sun. But
you'd make a dope ass spy. Like you'd be able to like, you know what I'm saying? Like you could go on all the jobs.
Hey, I'm available. So if anyone's hiring, please reach out. But no, it's just like that's the other thing. I'm like ambiguous in all these different regards. You've got these Middle Eastern parents that are raising me one way at home, but then I'm going to school and I'm seeing like little boys' dicks in the shower and freaking out to the gym teacher, and he's just like, "Don't look." But then I'm like, "All right, well, where do I belong here?" Or it's like you grow up being told like, "Oh, you're just the Middle Eastern fucker," and then you're like, "Oh yeah, that's right." And then when I visit home, I'll be accepted. And then you go visit home after 15 years, and they're like, "Oh, look at this fucking American douche." It's just like, all right, so where do I belong here? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of been my whole life, just kind of like going through all that, right? And I'm trying to remember what made me answer that. What was the question you asked me? Do I feel like a
little bit like maybe like there is like kind of like a social cost of being successful in other realm?
See, I gotta really think about that because the comedians are all nice, but are they just nice to my face? I don't know. You know, no one's been like overly mean, I guess you could say. But I'm also dealing with mostly open micers. I almost feel like once I start going to more shows and meeting other like quote working comics, then maybe it feels a little bit more eggshelly, if you will. But
what I've noticed is that the working comics are actually cooler than open micers.
You think so?
Yeah, the dude, like it's crazy to me. Like the people who I've noticed who are like the cockiest and the most like have the most ego around comedy, fucking open micers. Like I've done shows with Tracy Morgan. Tracy Morgan's mad cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? Bill Burr's mad cool. All these guys mad cool. But like, you know, I think it's because they don't have any insecurity about where they're at. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah. So I should clarify. Those guys obviously are like A-list comedians,
Yeah.
right? So anytime I've interacted with those guys, like anytime I go to the Cellar,
Yeah.
Gotham, wherever, like they're very welcoming. They're willing to shake my hands, no questions asked. They're not like, who's this douche,
Yeah.
right? But I meant more like if you go to the show we went to last night.
Yeah.
I mean, those comics are cool, but like a show at the Lantern or a show at any of these variety free shows kind of scattered around the city where like these guys are still doing open mics, but like they're also doing shows, and maybe they've also been on Comedy Central, but they're still doing open mics and all these other shows. I think that tier I'm still like kind of navigating a little bit. But yeah, I mean, overall my experience has been positive. I still don't get that heavy sensation of like, yes, I belong here. You know, I still don't have that, but maybe that's just a timing thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I'm still new, so.
Well, and also I think it's a human thing. I think like I'm similar to you. Like, you know, I'm Indian and black. I was born in London. I'm a British citizen, but I don't have a British accent. And so like then was raised in China and stuff. And so it's like, you know, but I think the more I think about it, I think everybody feels to an extent existential loneliness. And I think the more complex of an individual you are, the more likely you are to feel that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
Like there's something called the isolation paradox that I read somewhere where it's like the more you grow like physically, mentally, and spiritually, the fewer people you can actually have a fulfilling relationship with, because it's just like there are more dimensions of yourself to be like realized.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense, because you always wondered why like comedians were suicidal, but then I finally got it. I was like, oh, okay, you're just more self-aware.
Self-aware and like honestly hyper romantic about themselves. And then there's like this degree of like not feeling like they're in control of their destiny, right? So like everything is to pursue something where they're either it's a booker that's giving them access, like, you know, it's a constant being interviewed stage or whatever like that, and you're constantly not sure where you are in this hierarchy. Like, you know, as a doctor, it's very stratified, right? It's very clear, like, you know, residents, blah blah blah, you know, like attendings, whatever, you know where you are in the thing. There's no status anxiety. But a comic, you know, like you're doing pretty good. You get JFL, and then, you know, everyone's booking you for a bit, but then you have a couple bad sets and like nothing's really coming in. Then all of a sudden, like instead of getting booked every day, you're getting booked like 3 times a week, and you're
some
like,
piece of shit gets a special.
and you're like, what the fuck? Him? Like, fuck that. I saw him bomb last week. Blah blah blah. And so you're like, and then there's this lie that comedy is a meritocracy that everyone I think buys into. So I'm writing a book right now about how like cultural myths, basically the more distorted your cultural myth, the farther it is from the way reality actually operates, the more pain it actually causes you as an individual, because you don't understand how the system works, right? And so there's constantly, it's like believing in a religion that doesn't have any, the practices of it are actually kind of leading you down to a bad path. And we have those myths outside of religion as well. And one of those in comedy is that if you're really funny, all you have to do is be really funny, and eventually it will all work out. But that's actually just not the case. Like, I mean, you're better off building a massive following, leveraging that into all this other shit before, you know, focusing and having other people be like, that guy is so funny, I want him to have opportunity. And actually, I've even seen it at the opposite, where I know people who are so funny that bigger comics won't take them on tour with them, because like, why would you want to take up somebody who's might make you bomb? You know, and you know, like then, you know, there's this whole acting component, right, where it's like no one really tells you about that, but like it's actually a massive part of the comedy thing, where it's like, yo, if you're booking commercials and stuff, that's gonna help you a long way, because then you're just already in the trade, you already know how to act, you already have on-screen stuff, and but no one really talks about that. A lot of people just think like, okay, I just do these mics for a few years and then I'll eventually get picked up, and it's kind of like this concept of luck that a lot of people buy into, where when I look at it, it's really not luck. It's just people knowing how to play their cards.
No, I totally agree with that, man. But I think a component of that too is do you have the intelligence package to realize that? To be like, okay, I have the intelligence to be funny, which of course requires its own intelligence, but then do I know how to parlay this from mics to a show to booking something to acting to the? I feel like that's its own intelligence that maybe some comics either just ignore and just try to be stubborn about, or you just don't get it. You're just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy into this idea, and it's just not a smart idea.
Well, and also there's social consequence for thinking like that. Like there are people, especially back when I was living in Chicago, when you start talking about like parlaying and all this other stuff, people start looking at you kind of like suspicious. There's like, I don't know, there's not a proper term for it, but do you know who Machiavelli is?
I've heard the name.
So he wrote this book called The Prince about how basically social engineering on a high level and he was just describing how things worked and operated, but he had actually a massive amount of social cost for some of the ideas that he had for being too aware of like how it operated.
Can you give an example?
So like I don't that's as far as my extent for him, but like there are other
I'm gonna quickly look at it.
but there are other people in history where it's like if you show that you know too much about how things operate, there's like a level of suspicion that people have. And Robert Greene writes about it in the 48 Laws of Power, where it's like it's better to have people assume that you're stupid, because then they're less
alarmed.
You just seem less conniving.
No, I mean, that makes perfect sense, because who's more threatening, the conniving guy who knows how things operate or the conniving guy who doesn't do shit, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But yeah, man, it's such a frustrating process, because like your intentions could be good, but you start talking or acting a certain way and people start getting suspicious of you, and you're just like, all right, what are you supposed to fucking do here?
Yeah, exactly. Well, one thing I've noticed though is a lot of the people who are moving the right way are totally on board with talking like that and like welcome it, and it's refreshing, but it also can just like lead to a degree of isolation and like concept of etiquette, right? Like, so like it's kind of like an unspoken rule that you shouldn't be talking about this with certain people or whatever like that, but the only way to find out who's what is to like risk alienating some people. Yeah. And some people are just impossible to please.
Right. Well, yeah, I think it's kind of similar to like a country club. It's like maybe all these rich people join country clubs because they want to talk about money, but they can't talk about it with fucking the plumber and the mechanic down the street. They got to talk about it with other people who like fuck with money. It's just like you can't. It's probably basically the exact thing. It's just like, oh, let's not talk about money. But it's like, all right, well, if we don't talk about it, how are we supposed to make it? It's like
exactly.
So it's probably something similar.
Well, like that's what everyone. So my older sister went to Wharton and stuff like that, and we have had a lot of different people in my family go to like Ivy League schools, and I didn't. But one of the things that I tell people is the benefit of that is that you have basically a group of people who are really intelligent together, and you don't have to run that far to have that kind of conversation. And before the internet existed, that was really rare. It was really rare to be able to turn to the person next to you and have them be a hyper talented individual. And especially when you're looking at schools like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, or Oxford or Cambridge, you literally have like 1 in 10,000 people, 1 in 20,000 people that you can just interact with. Like Mark Zuckerberg literally turned to his roommate and started a multi-billion-dollar company, and that's crazy. Like if you think about that from a probability standpoint, that's absolutely insane that you would have somebody positioned that close to you to be able to take a company that far to basically be that valuable. And the same with Bill Gates. I don't think it was his roommate, but it was somebody who he had met at Harvard, and they were able to create something of that much value. Right. And
I can't get a fucking roommate to like film a YouTube video with me. So
right. And it's actually crazy, because like like the amount of investment people have in certain projects. That's one of the things. Like Usama and I and Karen Margolis, we wrote like this show called Brown Guys Who Fuck, and like we were in Cannes talking to Lionsgate.
Why is she on that?
Because so we number one, we needed a white woman because diversity. So she was our roommate.
The white woman is the diversity.
So she was our roommate in the thing, and it just basically added like a color cast or whatever like that. But it was like really great to work with them because they're both people who, when they say they're going to do something, they do it. Right. Because a lot of times,
which is very underrated, by the way.
What?
Very underrated.
Yeah, very underrated. Like like 90% of it, especially when you're working against creative people, is just doing the work.
Oh my God, dude, Jesus Christ.
Well, like one of the things I thought about was like when I was doing the math of wanting to be a comedian, was like there are probably 3,000 to 5,000 active comedians, like active, like going up multiple times a week in America. So there are like 50,000 applicants to big law jobs. So already being a comic isn't nearly as competitive. Then you take a look at the work ethic issues, drug habits, all this other shit. You're like comparing, there's not that many people ahead of you.
Right.
Then you get in a place where, are they in a situation, are they in a city where they can actually succeed?
Yep.
That gets rid of a massive component. So then you're like really competing against like 200, 300 people, right? And then from there,
Don't tell that to the line. I had to wait in at fucking Comic Strip Live for like 4 hours, man. Jesus Christ. Fuck.
But yeah, you just look at it, it's like not that many people. And there's a lot of people who just don't know how to work hard, or, you know, end up shooting themselves in the foot. And I think that's pretty much across the form with almost all art forms, because it's so subjective. There's not really that kind of objective critique. Am I doing better? Like I used to do a lot of sports. Do you do sports?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like sports, it's funny because I've noticed so many comedians who've done really well at comedy really fast that used to play D1 sports or compete or whatever like that, because the concept of failing doesn't hit you as bad.
Yep.
You understand rigor, consistency, intensity, all this other stuff. There's a self-awareness that you have to cultivate, and there's a not being a good enough that you are made friends with whenever you're playing sports, that I don't think you're going to get from like, oh, hey, like, I don't do sports, but I talk about feminism all the time. Like, you know, you're not going to get that kind of objective, critical, you're not going to be that critical of yourself in the right way.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that too with like, I think it, again, just goes back to a lot of self-awareness. Like so many people just either don't have an Instagram, or they're like, how did you even know to do that? But in my head, I'm just like, how could you not know how to do this? You know what I mean? Whatever it is, I can't think of a specific example, but I was going to ask you more specifically about for those moments when like you don't feel funny. So like the past week or so, I haven't even gone to any mics because I'm like, I don't got anything. I got nothing new. So. And then I'm watching other comedians, and then I'm like, all right, man, how the fuck is this guy this funny? Or even the people that aren't that funny, and I'm just watching, I'm just like, fuck, they got this special, but I'm not laughing. I don't feel funny. And just like, it all just kind of becomes this vicious cycle where I'm just like stuck. Do you ever have those, and what do you do about it?
Well, like actually the first time we met, I was like waist deep in that shit. Like I could not feel like it's funny. I could not, because I'm the type of comic where I don't even like having a set list or anything like that. And I'm just now trying to get back to where I was, because like I just wasn't feeling it, and then sometimes it's just like just fucking take a break from comedy. And honestly, comedy's not that fucking serious. I remember one time I like wrote down, it was like on day like 350 or whatever, and I bombed at this mic, Dope Meets Fresh, Emerald City Coffee, and I was like, I fucking hate these people. Like I fucking hated them, and I get in my car I get in the Uber, and I'm like tearing up. I'm so upset, and then I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. And so I go back home and I write down everything that's more important to me than stand up. And it was like a lot of shit, like, you know, and that act of like basically not making stand-up important to me makes you so much more funny. Dude, it's fucking jokes. It's nothing. It's like, and everybody gets so fucking romantic and high on themselves, like, yeah, you know, like comedy's like fucking sacred. No, it's fucking not, dude. Like, dude, like, know him at the comedy cellar, your fucking thing. It's a check to him. There's no sacredness in all of this shit. You're not fucking a philosopher. Actually, you're probably too lazy to be a philosopher, and that's why you're a comic. All right? Like, nothing's that profound. And seeing yourself objectively, you can be like, oh, okay. There.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But then where's the material come from?
It was I think are you part of group chats?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just be like, I'll just be in your group chat more. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, trust me, I've stolen plenty of jokes from my group chat. Because they're not going to get on stage. So I'm like, someone's got to use this shit. This is gold, you know?
Yeah. Or, you know, maybe travel or something, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get a lot of material from work, obviously, because I'm a doctor. But again, this goes back to what I was telling you earlier, which is like, I'll have something, quote, interesting happen at work, but to me, it wasn't interesting. So it'll just gloss over me. I'm like, oh, fuck, that could have been some good material.
Do you know what your point of view is?
What do you mean?
Like, do you have like a kind of like a point of view, like a way in which that you look at the world, right?
Oh, okay.
Right? Like,
my point of view is very rose-colored glasses. So, like, I look for the positive in everything, which is very not conducive to comedy, I find, because a lot of it has to be like, what the fuck is this horse shit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I'm capable of finding that sometimes if I'm actively looking for it, especially ever since I started comedy. I'm looking for the joke now, right? But my innate skills, not skill set, but like my innate POV is what's the positive here.
Okay, yeah. Super faggy. No.
Zing. Yeah, no, it's kind of cucky, but it is what it is. You know,
no, it's all good. You know, I think once you kind of make a relationship with not like, I remember I had a time similar to you, because I'm a like naturally positive dude, where I had to distinguish my living point of view from my comedic point of view, and that took a while to like cultivate, right? Where it's like the system of thoughts. Cause like what I noticed, what first happened with me in comedy was it was just like trying to make anything funny, right? Like, yeah, man, like I let girls throw up, Ebola's going around, gotta stop letting girls throw up on me though. And like, you know, and then it goes to like, you know, like, oh, let me recite stories that have happened in my life. Like this was the time I was doing cocaine and playing World of Warcraft. And then it kind of got to like where I wanted it to be more about my day. And then it started morphing into like kind of like existential philosophy and stuff and like suicide and all this other shit. And now it's like fuckboy shit, and but it's like where everything is like kind of contouring in my mind. And so like one of the new bits I've been thinking a lot about was about how like I could be Stalin, and like because like, you know,
what?
Yeah, like because I'm like mad petty, and then I think about this as like, you know, Stalin had like 130 million people, you know, and like I have like 700 sheets of toilet paper and I wipe my ass with those. And so like so that kind of combination of like the value of human life, I don't really understand what it's like to have 130 million people. So how the fuck am I going to judge a guy, you know? And like I like trying to like I like moral shit. Like that's my thing, is like why is it?
Well, you can like certain topics or whatever, right? But the issue is, how do you make it funny, right? So
Yeah,
like I at least struggle with like you said, stories, right?
Yeah.
I would love to tell more stories, but it's like I don't know how to make this story funny. I don't know how to quote punch it up. I don't know how to add this here and that there. I'm getting a little bit better at it, but I'm still not like, because I have a very concrete thinking brain. So like I take things at face value. When a girl says, "Hey, you want to come over and watch a movie?" I go and watch the movie. Like that's my brain, you know. Yeah. But that's not very conducive to comedy, because you want to use a little exaggeration and hyperbole and throw a little thing in there. It's like my brain isn't there, you know. But I don't know.
Is you write on Twitter?
No, I'm not a Twitter guy.
What I would do is practice on Twitter, like writing jokes, because it makes you really economic, and it like the structure of it becomes like it just shows you, kind of gives you an intuitive structure for stuff.
Here's my problem with that is like I really want to get away from being like the type of comic. I want to be more like I'm just jealous of comedians who have a bit that's like a 5-minute bit about one topic: marriage, sex, drugs, whatever.
But like the thing about that is that you have to be in a space in which that you have the time to do that, right? So
of course, yeah.
Like so it's like it's hard to be like, you know, go off on like this whole thing about like, you know, marriage or divorce or like love and sex and all this stuff when you only have like a 10-minute spot, right? Because they're not bought into you all the way. How the fuck are they going to be bought into a 5-minute story?
No, I agree with you on that. I'm just saying in general, like this is kind of the place I want to head to, which is how can I talk about something for longer than premise, punchline, premise, punchline, premise, punchline.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel that.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. Have you ever just gone up there and riffed for like a month?
Always. That's basically what I do. I don't like, I have jokes written down, and I don't know how other comics do this, but obviously everyone has their own style. But like to sit down and write, that shit sounds torturous to me. For me, it's more like I'm sitting down playing a video game, or I'm out in the world seeing something, and I'm like, holy shit, this is funny to me. Let me write this down. So I'll write down a basic premise and a punchline, write in my notes, and then I'll take it up on stage if, you know, whenever the time comes. But yeah, I think with this latest phase of me not feeling funny, like today, if I hit a mic, I'm probably just going to get up there and be like, "So, dude," you know, just like, and just see where my mind goes. But again, because I'm not a naturally funny guy, like I'm not, you know, those guys you hang out with that aren't even comics, but they're fucking hilarious. Yeah. I'm not one of those guys, unfortunately. So like, I feel like that's also not conducive to just pure riffing. But I feel like that whole, you know, get up on stage till you find your voice type of thing, I kind of buy into that too, because I write jokes different now than I used to my first set, because I have a different perspective now of like, okay, this will work on stage, this won't. Someone will come to me with a joke like, "Oh, this is funny, you should talk about this." I'm like, this is not going to work for stand-up. Kind of like that. So like I'm becoming more self-aware there, but it'd be nice if I was just naturally funny to be able to incorporate that into more of like a conversational riff type of thing, you know? I
feel that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, well, like the issue that I had was whenever I first started was I realized that my voice actually sounded completely different on stage than off stage when I'm joking with my friends, which was like mad weird. Like you'll like listen to the recording, I'm like, it sounded like all shaky and shit, and it's not like, yeah, dude, blah blah blah, like, you know, and like I had a hard time getting in that fucking headspace. Yeah, because like I've seen a lot of people who believe they're funny off stage and can get on stage and it's like, yeah, but this is still art form. You know what I'm saying? And so like there's like a gap between them, and it's kind of, they can't even put their finger on it. You know, and I think that's the hard part about comedy, is being funny with the social pressure of having to be funny, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's definitely a different level, especially then you add in if you're starting to get paid.
Yeah.
You gotta deliver, blah, blah, blah. So.
Or you don't, like, fuck it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want to, quote, make it, you're going to have to, right?
Maybe.
That's what you're here for, right?
Like, dude, there's like so many people who make mad money off comedy who eat shit all the time. What you really want to do is just have an audience.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Like an audience to watch you fucking bomb. Fuck it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I remember one time in Edinburgh, I walked half the fucking audience. The day before, murder people were telling me I was mad funny. Walked half the audience, had a blog post written about me. Nice. Yeah, I was like, yeah, you know, they're like, I had a bit about MLK getting assassinated that people didn't like, and Ariana Grande. But, you know, I think that, like, I think part of it is honestly not giving the audience what they want. And because there's going to be a point where you're going to have to fucking bomb a lot to find another level of your funny. And there's a lot of people who just won't go through that. So they'll just stay at this like one level, you know?
I think I'm probably right there, actually.
Right there.
Because, going back to what we were talking about earlier with the whole dichotomy thing, I think it kind of has fucked me up maybe in the long run. I mean, we'll find out, but I think I'm a little fucked up in the head because when I go to Iowa to do comedy, granted, there's only 2 shows a week, one on a Monday, one on a Wednesday, but those shows have regular people in them. And so those open mics feel like a booked show. Yeah. And it's Iowa comedy. It's not New York comedy. So it's like, it's a lot more forgiving as far as getting laughs compared to here. So like I want to say that might have fucked me up a little bit because every time I come back here, I almost become a little bit more miserable because I'm like, oh, I got to do this now, you know? And then, even I went on a run in Albany when I was visiting. They happen to be doing comedy. They just started doing comedy not too long ago. And they happened to be the one week that I happened to be home for the first time. And I asked them if I could get on. They said, sure. And then they gave me 10 minutes for the first one. They loved it. They're like, oh, can you do 15 minutes on Monday? I'm like, fuck yeah. And then I come right back here. 3 minutes, baby. I'm like, and no one's laughing. So, hey, what's up? But yeah, no, I think that fucked me up because when I'm out there and there's regular people in the crowd, I want to do the jokes I know work. Yeah. And I don't want to bomb and I don't want to risk new jokes potentially. Although I'll throw in at least 1 or 2 new jokes each set just because I'm do this like a prime opportunity. But then here, it's like I'm trying to establish myself here. I'm trying to meet other comedians. I want other comedians to find me funny because, again, that's how they book you, right? They got to, A, like you, and B, think you're funny. So, like, yeah, man, it kind of fucks me up because I'm, like, more miserable because I've been exposed to something else, quote, better. And then I come back here and I'm, like, trying to ingratiate myself with the comics because that is the crowd here. So it's like, do I really want to bomb? But if I don't, then how am I going to get better? It's like, it's that whole thing. You know?
Yeah, man, dude, fuck everybody here. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, real talk. When I go to other cities, when I play the road and everything like that, murder, all those places, I take those wins. I take my club sets over like shit around comics. Fuck comics, dude. Like literally fuck comics. I'm on that shit, dude. You go to Creek in the Cave and like shit that's worked all over the country that you murdered all the different kinds of crowds. People come up to you and tell you great jokes. And like it's like this cold bomb. Like, will I ever be funny? Fuck them, dude. Like, I'm gonna let a fucking bunch of nobodies who haven't been laid. Oh, you're gonna get up there and talk about how you haven't been laid for another 6 months, and I'm supposed to try to please you? Fuck that.
Yeah, no.
The thing is just stay in your own lane, keep building your own shit. You don't have to graduate through that scene. Most of those people don't actually have power. And I've seen so many people get so dissuaded and so many talented people with unique point of views and unique stories get like really put off because like of what you're talking about. Yeah. And like, they're like, can I even be funny? Right. And they feel like this weird, like, will they ever like me? No, bro, you're not fucking like them because you're probably gonna be successful at this. And so like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, I don't know. To me, whenever I stopped hanging out at sceney places, I got happier. Whenever I started like, you know, investing in other shit, like doing the other stuff, I got happier. And like the way I see it is, it doesn't take that long to build material. Everybody thinks it takes a really long time. No, you just need a bunch of good stage time, not bad, shitty 3-minute, like, let me see how this works in an autistic audience. Like good fucking stage time. You know what I'm saying? Like real, where people are going to let you play around for a bit and not everything has to be funny all the way. And so you can kind of piece it together and you can do that completely outside of this hierarchy. Yeah.
So you don't think there's any validity to let me win these fuckers over?
No, fuck them. No? Like, dude, like to me, I've seen too many people rise up who they never backed. In every scene, I've seen people just rise up, get the shit that never had their fucking A-okay.
Well, no, I'm definitely not saying go to these guys for what do you call it, for promoting you, I guess. I'm definitely not looking for that from anybody, and I really don't expect it. If it happens, great. But like you said, building the audience, that's what all this is. So I'm building my own audience, and if I want to book my own show, I'll do it somewhere. I don't fucking need any of these places. But what I meant more was like, I also don't want to just build a following, because you know these fucks that just like build a following over whatever, and then they just think they can just put a show together, but they're not funny, they're not entertaining, they're not whatever. And again, that's subjective, because maybe it's just not for me, right?
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, like, I know personally I would love to make as many people laugh as possible. So, like, if I can win over a room, that would feel good.
Yeah,
but 100%. You're right. Like, maybe it'll never happen, and it doesn't need to.
Well,
so.
The thing is the look in your face, right, of wanting to win them over makes them not want to fucking be on your side. And there's gonna be a cadence in your voice where you're not gonna access that like fucking alpha, like I don't give a fuck, like, you know, and you're not gonna hit that frequency where you're not looking to them for approval. And so I totally get what you're saying, where like, you know, if PewDiePie came out with a fucking comedy special, it's gonna be ass as fuck, right? Like, because he doesn't have experience being a stand-up.
But that shit's gonna sell out.
Yeah, Madison Square Garden. But what I am saying is this, is that like, you know, I would celebrate the wins in Iowa and your road shows and all that shit, and you come here and you just dick the fuck around. I would not give a shit about the stuff that you're really doing here. If you want to get booked on these shows, produce your own fucking show and then swap fucking spots, because that's fucking what everyone does anyway. Right. Show up to people's show, play the fucking game. Right. And like, part of it's just familiarity, but like, to me, whenever you kind of put your self-esteem out there, and it's like not even intentional, it's just like a little bit, like you kind of be like, hey, like this I see so-and-so kill all the time, did they laugh during my fucking shit? And you're like, dude, it doesn't fucking matter. Like,
I mean, they probably weren't listening.
They probably weren't listening. They're like, oh, I can't fucking believe I'm not up yet. But I don't know, man.
Oh yeah, that's definitely another factor that's really eating away at me. I just don't know how much more bad comedy I can watch with these open mics, and I'm just like, really, I'm going last again? So you're telling me I got to sit through all this shit again?
Yeah,
like,
just start doing sets in the subway
again. Do what?
Start doing sets in the subway.
In the subway.
No, I have a friend who's done sets in the subway for a year and a half.
Really?
Like, yeah, in the L in Chicago, and he came out here, did some. I mean, you have people.
Wait, he just yells on the car?
He's like, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting ready for a show tnight. So I'm going to be doing some stand-up comedy. If you don't want to hear it, sorry. and then he does John Clay Hurlbutt. And he does it. It's made him a lot better. It's made him fearless. It's real people. He's gotten paid from it. So it's, instead of spending $5 per spot, it's
interesting.
An inbuilt audience. You can do it wherever. In terms of time efficiency, like, you can't beat it.
Right.
You just hop on the train.
Right.
And
I wonder what kind of material he does.
Dude, he does all sorts of stuff. Some of it's like non-edgy, some of it is fucking really edgy, race shit, all the stuff. And you know, if you want to like add a little bit more of like pizzazz to it, bring that portable box. You know what I'm saying? Get a mic in there, and it makes some amazing footage for your channel or whatever like that. Right. So
yeah. Does he have footage up? I'd like to see that.
No, he just keeps it to himself. Just like basically, it's just a grind to work on it. And he does that at all times. So he'll do it at 5 a.m. He'll do it at fucking 3 p.m.
That'd be fun to do with somebody. Like, let's have a conversation out loud on this train. Yeah, that could be kind of cool.
Well, it's fun to do. I've done it with him in the car. So it's really good whenever you have somebody else that you know in there, because you don't feel like you're fucking crazy, right? But to do it just completely by yourself, it's intense.
Oh, I'm sure it's like a good building block. But I don't know that I'd be ready to do that.
I mean, it's an intense thing, but it's just like, if you're like, you know, worried about like wasting time or whatever like that, fuck it, just hop on the subway. There's just like all these different other avenues to be fucking funny, you know. Also poetry open mics, dude.
I've heard about that.
Huge sleeper, dude. Like, they'll give you 10 fucking 15 minutes. You're in a coffee shop, a lot of times real people. They a lot of times book you to host their like shows. Oh, really? Like, oh yeah, I'm having like this like fucking soiree like in Brooklyn. Come out to my house show. And you're like, all right, like, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard that from another comic too. I just haven't gotten around to doing. Maybe that is my next move, because like dude, these open mics, man.
Dude, they fucking
dying, man.
Yeah, dude. You know, and like I think you're doing the right thing by like hanging out at other shows, like fucking meeting bookers.
Yeah, and not only that, but just to fucking laugh at something, man. Yeah. Like, that's, you know, and not all the shows I go to are good, but at least it's a step up from the open mics. It's like, God damn it, man, I can't do it. But I mean, there's also something to be said about, can you fucking put yourself through this attrition bullshit? Like,
100%.
So there's that too.
Well, and you notice the comics who don't. They, like people who've been famous in other realms who do a crossover into just to do crossover into stand-up. There's something missing. There's a grit. There's an edge they don't have. Yeah. You know, I did it. Like there was 1 month in Chicago. Went up 74 times. Like fucking all garbage ass rooms, all this other shit. But like past a certain point, you've learned you've gone through the attrition, and you're just like you're in the trench, and the war's over. Right. Like and I think that like it's also like a cesspool of like I remember. When my show in Edinburgh was called "If You Feel Like Killing Yourself, Call Me," and it was like all the suicide material. And I only realized this in retrospect after I moved to New York. Oh, I was actually depressed. I was actually full blown, really, really depressed, and I was fantasizing about killing myself all the time. And I just thought like, oh, it's because I'm creative. Like that's why I'm thinking about hurling myself in front of every fucking train. And and I was just like, oh, it's because I'm just around a lot of really sad people and a lot of people where it's like not working out. So you want to spend your time with people who are going to have the ideas to get you where you want to go. I'd also say like, are you hanging out at clubs?
Yeah. I was literally at the Stand last night and Comedy Cellar. Yeah. Starting to meet more and more people there, comics there, not the bookers, but like some of the other staff there, and they've been super nice to me, and that's awesome. It feels really good.
100%.
Actually, I met the owner of the Stand last night. He actually recognized. He called me over. He's like, "Hey, I see your YouTube." I was like, "Oh shit,
that's
awesome.
Hey, that's dope, dude."
Yeah. So I'm gonna go back tonight for the Fight Club, Comedy Fight Club thing, because I think they do it now there. And yeah, it just was like a super welcoming environment. I was hanging out with other comics, just having a good time. Right after your show, I went. I followed Charles over to the Stand, and then we just kind of hung out there for a little bit. So that was cool.
Yeah, it's always great, dude. Everyone there is kind of chill. It's like if you're there, you belong, and it's like an easy way, because if you get one booker on your side, that's worth 20 indie shows, right? So it's just like you think of like times and resources. It's just like spending. If you go and hang out at the Stand, like just pick one club and just hang out at the Stand every day for like 3 months, eventually you're gonna get up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're doing other stuff, you're getting funny, but they're going to watch your clip. Right. Because a lot of times you'll send in your fucking clip, they don't fucking know you. They have 9,000 people who are sending in clips. They're gonna go with what works. But if you're there every day, you're cool, blah blah blah. You're talking to somebody, you can get some recommendations or whatever like that.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I know for a fact that I'm enough of a not douchebag to be able to get booked someday. Right? Yeah. I know that. And I totally agree with you. Put in the time, get to know people, be nice, just be around, right? Yeah,
dude.
But on top of all that, I also don't want all that to happen, because I know I'll get on stage, right? But then when I get up there, I don't want to be bad. You know, no one does, I think, right? And so I do want to put in the work and the effort and all those other gritty grind shits that you have to go through. So it's just tough, man, because I think you put it in perspective for me. I think I'm right at that stage where it's just like, dude, you just gotta get ready to bomb for a while.
And find yourself.
Find some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're gonna find yourself, and you're gonna find like your real point of view, because like it's like when all that so many people don't want to go through that period of not being funny. Yeah. There's so many people who just don't want to let go of their tent, right? Like, and it's just like in that you kind of find a sense of freedom, and you kind of be like, okay, this is. Right. And then you start building again. But I think that's the cool thing about comedy, is it has so many inbuilt identity crises. Because if you're tired of telling a joke, the audience feels it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you don't get that same thing with a song. Like, you can fake being into a song. You can't really.
Dude, the more I get into comedy, the more I'm fucking jealous of musicians.
Oh,
man.
dude,
I'm
yeah.
just like, motherfuckers.
Because they don't have to be self-aware in the same way. Like, you can't have rapper confidence and be a comic, right? Yeah.
Dude, it's fucking annoying. And think about it. You get to just sit at home. Like, this would be the album, right?
Yeah.
And then this would go out.
Yep.
And then a billion people are like, yo, we're about this. And then we would just press play on this conversation forever.
Exactly. Like, that's it. And then you go in there and you just like you take off your shirt, and then you get them to say half the lines of your shit, But I think there is something about comedy that's really fun. And I think the real comics, to me, like whenever I hear about like old school comics, like not wanting to burn material, I'm like, fucking burn jokes. Who gives a shit?
What do you mean burn material?
So like Letterman and shit like that, they're like never came out with specials because they don't want to lose jokes, because they look at it as a finite resource, where I'm like, I don't give a fuck about a joke after it works, kind of. Like, even kind of. Like, I just want to, like...
To me, a good comic is always going to have good material, so, like, just as soon as you have the material, put it out and keep moving.
Keep moving, because that's the joy in making the jokes, is, like, trying to get shit that works, and is, like, fucking up. Like, if you have fun bombing, like, a little bit, like, then, like, I was fucking up left and right yesterday. Like, but it's, like, still, like... It's not attacking my identity. I think also, here's the thing, is accepting that you're funny. And that was like, for me, the first year I was like, oh, I'm not funny, I'm not this, I'm not that. But then I think of all these E equals MC squared motherfuckers in comedy who, like, you know, are the guys who with the pen and paper all the time but don't make anybody laugh off stage. And I'm like, I'm funnier than, I mean, I used to roast guys, like, you know what I'm saying? And then you accept that you're funny, then you stop trying to prove to yourself you're funny, because a lot of people are trying to prove that they're funny every time they get on stage, and that's why your fucking confidence is going through wild swings. You fucking kill one night and you're like, I'm a fucking comedy guy, bro, motherfucker. And then you know, and then you bomb, and you're just like, I don't think I'll ever be funny, or the so and so's never seen me have a good set. And then, but once you just accept that you're funny, right, and you just accept it, you're not the funniest motherfucker, you're not the worst, you're just funny. Then you can just have the freedom to fuck up, right. You know?
So why don't I transition that into, how do you feel about like workshopping a joke right here, right now?
Okay,
you
yeah.
Do that?
Yeah.
Let's try this, because maybe I'll incorporate this into like a regular segment here. Because I feel like with writing, I almost considered making this like its own show. And I've seen, like, I don't know if you know Andrew Schultz, the comic. He literally does an entire YouTube show on this now, where like he sits down with other comics and they bring like a very offensive topic and they try to find the funny in it, and like, okay, how do we structure this joke so that it doesn't offend people and we get people to laugh? So like that's kind of his whole concept. For me, I'd like it to be even more bare bones. Like, how do I take this fucking story and make it funny?
Okay.
So let's try it, right? So this is a true story. I used to get haircuts.
Yeah.
No, okay. But no, I mean, I used to get like routine haircuts before I started to grow this bitch out. And what happened was I had this, so I could never find a good barber because every barber constantly would fuck up my hair. Like, they could never get the hair right. And I'm kind of one of these shy, meek dudes, so I'm just sitting there after the haircut, like, yeah, it looks fine, right? Finally, I find a barber that can cut my hair well, right? And then all of a sudden I stopped hearing from him. I think he had a drug problem. I don't know. So there's that. Then I find this new barber, really nice guy. I think he was Indian too, actually. Really nice guy, super nice, did a good job. And then I got literally one or maybe two haircuts from this guy. Couple weeks go by, and then I get a call from him, because we're texting buddies now. Like, I just text him, I tell him, yo, can I come in for a cut? He says, yeah. I'm like, yeah, dope. But now he texts me, he calls me, he goes, hey, listen, man, so my car got towed, or towed? Yeah, I think he said towed, and you know, I need $40 or $80. I forget exactly what he said, to get it out of the lot, because I don't have any cash, man. Can you help me out? And I'm like, sure, why not? I get there, and he's like, oh, actually, I need another 60 because it's going to be an additional day, so can you give me another 60? I'm like, all right, fine. So then weeks go by, I still haven't got my money back from this guy, and it becomes more and more clear, like, I'm not going to get my money back, right? So then I turned it basically into like a not a mortgage, but like almost like a pay it back system, where it's like, all right, I'm going to come in for my $20, $25 haircuts, and we'll just pay it off over like 8-9 haircuts, right? So now I'm at like haircut 3 or 4 with this guy. And then this particular day he goes, hey man, do you mind giving me a ride home? Cause you know, I gotta, you know, I don't have my car. I'm like, all right, fuck it, whatever. And he tells me like it's going to be a location that's on my way home to drop him off. But no, it's like way out of the way. And like, this guy's a nice guy, so I'm just sitting there talking, having a conversation with him. So I barely even noticed at first, but then eventually I'm like, dude, we're like way out of the way here. Next thing I know, we're in like not the projects, but like a really bad part of a separate town already. We're like way past where I thought I was taking him. And then he's like, yeah, you mind just waiting right here? So then he goes into this dilapidated house. And I'm like, wait a minute, did he just tell me to wait for him? What the fuck is going on here? Is this a drug deal? What's going on in there, right? 15 minutes, I guess, go by, and then I finally call him, like, dude, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I gotta go home. What are you doing? And he gets back in the car, and he's like, yeah, sorry, man, sorry. And then we just go drive a little further back, and he's like, yeah, you mind just bringing me back to the barbershop? I'm like, motherfucker, no. So I just dropped him off at the closest gas station. I was like, dude, I gotta go, man. I literally have to leave. So then I went home. So I'm trying to find a way to turn this crazy fucking situation into a hilarious story, but like, you know, like, how would you even approach this? Are you looking to add like a little pop every 3 sentences? Like, what's...
Dude, well, what I'd be like is I would just introduce. So I think the premise of you helping your hairdresser be a drug dealer. I think the fact that he's a drug dealer and getting you to do drops for his drugs and like that, I think that's a funny angle, and that you're exchanging, literally risking everything unbeknownstly for free haircuts, right? Like,
well, technically not free because he owed me.
He owed you, yeah, right. Like you're exchanging. It's like this barter system where, okay, like, yeah, I'm helping him get fronted on a package or whatever. Like you could have literally been a conspirator in that. I just think that right there would be the place where I would launch off of, and I would
see already you've taken it to a place that I didn't even think to take it. Like you're making me laugh at my own story, right? So that's good. Because I wouldn't have even thought to do that, but
yeah, I think that if you, because like with stories like that, the beats of that one aren't naturally beaty. So you want, like, there's some stories where there's like natural beats in them, right? Where I used to do cocaine and I played World of Warcraft, like right there, like I could just go through the process of getting cocaine and then being a loser and then going and playing World of Warcraft, and like people are like, oh, that's funny, trigger words or whatever like that. And like I would think about where are the trigger words in the story as well. So like in terms of reference points, like, you know, like what's another way you could have described the projects, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like what are like 3 details of projects that everybody knows is a project, but like, you know, like you know, it's like one of the places, like, you know, elevators pee, you know, like I'm saying, like I just, if you can come up with how to describe that in a funny way. Also, I would focus on how you describe what kind of Indian he is. Like, is he like super, like, is he like an old grandpa Indian? You know what I'm saying? Is he a taxi driver Indian? Is he like a fuckboy Indian with a fucking haircut? Like, what kind of Indian dude is he that cutting your hair? Because like, that's funny. If it's like some old, like 60-year-old, like curry smelling.
No, it was like a 25-year-old, really nice guy.
Really nice guy.
Dates a white girl.
Yeah.
Just like a, yeah.
I would describe his outfit. Like I would get like describe like parts of him, so it puts an image in their head. Because like when you hear Indian guy, like I'm thinking like, is he Quickie Mart Indian guy? Yeah, that makes sense.
Because you're right. Maybe I shouldn't even say he's Indian. I should, for the story, I should be like, hey, some fucking what I thought was a nice guy, and I don't even have to give him.
I would actually add it at the end, right? Like, so it's like you're describing him. You know, one of those guys who wears like, you describe his outfit. You know, like low cut t-shirt. You know, fucking skinny jeans. You know, Indian guy. like there's a surprise. No one's seeing that coming, right? And so what I would do is I'd focus on clusters of details for those things, and then what details are funny, and then I drop them off at like what's an innocuous gas station like a weird
Sonico.
Well, yeah, like if there's like some weird like gas station, you could like a Buc-ee's, like if you're in the South, right? Like, you know, I dropped them at Buc-ee's and I fucking got out of there, you know, or even like, you know,
that's the other thing. What's the punch or what? Yeah, what's the punch line? What's the ending line?
Well, that's where your point of view, once you start cultivating it, will like take place of that, because then you'll be looking on where you want the story to end, right? Because like it doesn't even have to end with the story, right? It could just end with the insight you got from the shit, right? You know, like, and
I was telling another barber about this, and I was telling him the story, and he threw me a good line. He's like, yeah, anything for a haircut, huh?
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Like, which kind of fit very well, because I was like, yeah, dude, I always struggle finding a good barber. So that was something I was playing around with. But that's my problem. Like I told you earlier, I take things way too literally. So in my head, I'm like, how did the story start? How did the story end chronologically? And that's it. And then I'm stuck. Like, I don't think, okay, like literally you just went through like 8-9 different combinations of things that I never even thought to do. Because in my head, it was like, it started here at 3:00 and it ended here at 3:45. Like that's where my brain is just like in, you know?
Yeah. So I would just make it, I would make the story about fucking haircuts. I would remove the time component. I would get, what is this dude's fucking life? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I would just start like focusing on certain segments of the story. Right, you know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever been part of a drug deal and not known it? Like, that's you know, and right there, like, then they're already invested, right? And
yeah, I was gonna say that could be like a funny way to even just start an open mic. Be like, so you guys like haircuts? You ever been part of a drug deal? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Well, this story's for you. Buckle up. Yeah.
And the other thing that I wish I did more, but like. I want to do in the next segment of my like comedy and growing material is starting with the punchline and then writing out of that. Like, so like one of the new premises I'm working on is like, sometimes you got to cheat on your girlfriend to know that she's the one. And like, just like, that's like, I feel like that's a funny way.
That's the punchline?
Yeah. And then, but like just beginning at that, and then people, that's going to get a couple chuckles. Like people are going to be like, what? And then, you know, you're just like talking about like, yeah, because like the only way you actually know your like car or something is for you is if you've driven another car, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And like, and so like, just kind of like playing with that idea and like, just something like that, or like if God loves everyone, he has bad taste, like, and then like just something like that, and then you just work out of there.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm definitely quote ready for that yet, but yeah, that's a very powerful tool. Come up with the punchline first and then work backwards. But then that also brings into factors like, all right, well, what's funny enough to be a punchline? And
well, I would say this is nothing. It's not anything that's gonna get everyone dying laughing like that. But it's like something where it's just like where people are gonna get their interest piqued, right? So being a wordsmith at the premise instead of being a wordsmith at the end, right?
Okay.
Because like sometimes like for me, like Chris Rock is always like, let me make the premise really clear and then explain out of that. But sometimes you just have a ridiculous sounding thought, you know what I'm saying? And then that's going to get some people laugh. Some people are going to get their interest piqued, and then you're just going to work through that.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that was productive. Appreciate it. Damn it, I got a ways to go, man.
Dude, honestly, man, and I'll tell you this.
I hate writing. That's the other kind of flaw here, but yeah.
Well, dude, I got funnier when I stopped writing as much. When I just did exactly what you do. Like, I just write down something there and blah, 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 and then just not be too romantic about it. Because, like, here's the thing. Do you know how much of a sociopath you'd be in conversation is if you had written out an entire conversation and then gone and fucking recited it to somebody? And that's exactly what your face looks like when you do that shit sometimes. Like, your eyes, like, I remember I used to video record all my sets, and I would realize, oh, my eyes are jetting upwards. Well, the reason my eyes were jetting upwards was because I'm trying to remember what I'm saying, which is a very not authentic thing. It doesn't feel like it's coming from here, right? And so, like, for me, I will make a personal effort not to write down what I'm saying. And I would just write down a tagline of, oh, I think this is funny. Let me try to get into my space where this would be a funny thing, right? Like, one of the things I fucked up on yesterday was, like, about my cousin. She did die, and, like, I didn't say it authentically, but the whole thing was about, like, if I had been talking to her every day, I would feel a lot more bad about it. So, like, what's the point of keeping in touch with family? Like, that's where I wanted to take it, but I couldn't get into that headspace. And so it just wasn't funny, because sometimes that's the difference, is whether or not you're in a space of being that character who is going to make that joke funny.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, there's so many factors, man. And I'm slowly but surely learning a little more with each thing. And that's the other nice thing about going to shows is, like, I get to see better people doing these kinds of little tips, tricks, and little actions. And I'm like, oh, yo, I should work that into something.
Have you watched Godfrey perform?
Literally last night. Yeah.
Dude,
I was hanging out with him. Yeah.
Dude, he's fucking cool.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He fucking, like,
I met him on my flight home from Iowa once.
Really?
I was literally getting in line in Minneapolis to get back to New York, and this was literally, I didn't get to tell you about this. So you were talking about the creek and the cave and, like, why am I trying to impress these fucks? I was literally going through that because that was literally the only open mic I'd ever heard of, because I had a friend that lived in Long Island City. That's literally the only reason he even knew about it. And I didn't know about freemics.com. I didn't know shit. And I just started comedy in Iowa. So that's where I started, actually. So then I come back to New York. I'm like, let me try these New York mics. And I was intimidated. I was like, oh, it's New York. Ooh, you know. And then I go to Creek in the Cave. That's literally my first experience. And then I'm just like, yeah, maybe I'm not meant for comedy here. I'll just do comedy in Iowa. And I went back and told the Iowa comics that, I was like, dude, you are fucking stupid. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So then they kind of kicked my ass, and then they kind of gave me this new perspective. Like, you know what, dude? Were you a good doctor day one? No, this is you a decade later, and now you're just, like, doing the shit, right? But so that made perfect sense. I'm like, dude, I literally just started. What the fuck am I talking about? So with this newfound confidence to get back to New York and try again, who's on my flight home? Fucking this big jacked black guy right behind me. I'm like, are you Godfrey? And then we just started chopping it up, hanging out, and I literally saw him at the Cellar later that night. We hung out till like 6 a.m. with other comics that were there. It's fucking awesome, dude. Same thing last night. Went to see him again. We were hanging out. But yeah, he's a character, man.
Dude, he's a character. Yeah. He is so genuine, and he's so intense. And he controls the stage. One time I had to follow him at Stand Up New York, and I fucking ate a dick. Like, you know what I'm saying? I just fucking, it was trash, you know? Because, like, he gets up and does 15, and then I have to follow him and do 15, and, like, they're just watching. It's like, I tell people it's like having to follow Mandingo in a train, you know what I'm saying? Like, because it was just, the audience was all stretched out, and then, you know, you have my regular ass dick and that shit, and I was like, man, fuck.
Here's the thing, though. I'm glad you brought that up. What's your opinion on that in terms of this? My whole thought is, because you said this earlier too, where, like, people don't want to bring funny people out with them on the road because blah, blah, blah. I'm of the opinion that, like, I want someone to kill the room right before I go on. I don't want someone shitting the bed right before I go on, because then that deflates the room, in my opinion. I don't know.
So, no, what I was talking about, so there's a difference between a competent comedian, a comedian who is going to be funny, but not too funny. Like I have a friend who opened for Russell Peters. I won't mention his name because I don't want to throw him under the bus. And he was opening for him in Dubai and murdered so hard. And Russell calls him back afterwards and is like, hey, that's the last time you're ever going to open for me. And because you never want to outshine the person that they came to pay and see.
That's fair, but also isn't that on the headliner to be like, yeah, I got to step it up?
Yeah, but like a lot of headliners, niggas, they're comics a lot of times. You know, like a lot of, and you know, a lot of people should be like, oh man, this should inspire me to be my greatest self. But a lot of people are like, it's just ego, and they're like, oh, I could just get someone else who can just do a good job of somebody who's going to be an opening act and not outshine me. Right. And so, you know, it's like that nuance where the difference between being a competent comedian and being like a next level, like Usama's so fucking funny, dude, like so fucking funny, right? Like if I was like a big name, I wouldn't have Usama fucking open for me. Fuck that. I love Usama, really? But he murdered.
No, I would love that because here's the other part of it. If you do bomb, wouldn't it be nice if they got to see someone that didn't?
Oh, I would. You know? I will. Like, so. Here's the thing: is I wouldn't bomb. Like, but like that is like the process of like, you know, sometimes where people think is like they have people coming out to see them. They have a headlining relationship with that club, right? That was very hard to get. They don't want that the booker be like, oh, like he came and he did pretty good, but the opener actually like showed him out, like blah, blah, blah. And they don't get back to you. They won't have you back for maybe another year or something like that. Cause then it's raw economics. It's not some like artistic stuff. It's like business stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I don't know, man. This is tough for me because I've never killed a room like a Godfrey level, like, you know, like those kind of massive jokes. And I wonder how much of that is skill, how much of that is timing, how much of that is just like, you know, where does that really come from, you know?
Dude, I think it just comes from like confidence. Like when Godfrey's on stage, I mean, he's not doing like a ba-doom-doom, you know what I'm saying? Like he's doing like, he's just in his fucking element. Right. And the creativity that happens for him is like the same kind of creativity you have when you don't know how you're going to finish a sentence before you start it, right? But you end up saying something really like, you know, kind of poignant and stuff like that. It's like that times 10. And he's been doing comedy for 20 years, you know, like, and he hasn't just been doing like, like the same thing. I remember I saw Godfrey go up the same night of the Game of Thrones finale. There's like 20 minutes on Game of Thrones, just talking about it. But he learned how to, his rate of speech, all this other stuff. It was just, he was in that moment. There was a concept of like presence. Yeah. Like he's like there, like that audience is like feeling him in that way. Right. And the way I call it is like the difference between a magician and a wizard. Like a magician is somebody who performs tricks, right? And that's like the standard, like, hey, you think it's this misdirection? Like, you know, and then a wizard where they're just like up there and they're basically so good at being themselves.
So it's organic.
It's organic and you feel it. And, you know, and this is the thing is like Godfrey will kind of lose him a little bit. Like they won't go like laugh super hard. He's not killing the whole fucking time, but he gets them right back or he doubles down and there's a kind of the intuition of maybe I just need to go farther, or maybe I need to pull back a little bit or whatever like that. And it's happening in his head in real time. Right. Whereas, you know, if you're so caught up with just doing your jokes, you know, like you're bigger than your jokes. Always you're bigger than your jokes. And your jokes are just a conduit for people to experience you're funny. Right. But as long as you think your jokes are what make you funny, you're going to fucking lose. You're going to always, you're not going to be as funny as a Yamanika who can just get up there and fucking murder and off of just somebody doing something weird in their audience. Right. And I think that there's a joy that comes from being funny in the moment that.
Yeah, but again, that goes back to, are you funny? You know? Yeah. So like you said, you got to think you're funny. You got to get through that whole process, blah, blah, blah. But again, if for someone like me who like just doesn't talk a lot when there's not a microphone and who's just standing in line at a bank or in a restaurant, I'm not the small talk guy. You know, I'm better at it now than I used to be, but I'm just not that guy. I'm just the quiet, sit alone, say nothing for hours kind of guy. So when those kind of moments hit, a person like a Yamanika or a Godfrey or some of these like very natural, conversational, charismatic people, like of course they can fucking ebb and flow through that shit. But for someone like me, I feel like I would just buckle and be like, all right, well, my comfort zone here is to just say nothing, you know, which is kind of like, all right, well, that's not entertaining, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, none of this is natural, right? Even your natural state wasn't natural. That's just some fucking, you, like, found a lane early on, and you're like, all right, man, I'm like the weird Muslim kid or whatever. Like, I'm not gonna talk that much. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was your fucking lane, right?
Right.
So like everybody finds their lane early, and it's up to us then. Are you going to choose the identity that was presented to you, or are you going to make your fucking own? And it's just like, yeah, you're going to have a bunch of fucking awkward moments. Dude, in law school, I was bombing in conversation all the fucking time. Like, you know, I'll take a conversation too far or whatever, fuck them. Like, you know, I used to ride around in Uber pools and just try out new school shooter jokes and shit, and watch my Uber rating fucking tank. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. Everything was just performance for the stage. So if you just turn everything into kind of like a conduit for that, you're going to be funny in no time.
Right. Yeah. Fuck, man.
I would just say this. I would stop saying that you're not a funny person and just accept that you're funny. You know.
Well, you have to. Otherwise, why do this? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just accept it. Just be like, yeah, I'm funny. Sometimes I fuck up and shit. Like, you know, I'm a funny motherfucker.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right about the recreating a persona, for lack of a better word. Because like I could totally be a fucking whole different person on stage.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, especially using my voice and like just kind of exuding basically a character piece. That would be fun to develop, but I don't know. Like maybe I just don't have that wheelhouse yet, or I don't know what I'm waiting for to like find it, or maybe I got to see an act to be like, oh, I could do something like that.
Well, one of the things is you have a very nice sounding voice. It sounds very authoritative, not authoritative, but like very informative. Yeah, it's commanding authority. And what you need to figure out is your funny riffing,
right?
Like, you know, like that different tone that you're like, blah, blah, blah. I'm super excited about this shit kind of like stage. And you probably already have it. What I do is like, whenever you're hanging out with old friends or your friends that you make laugh talk on the phone, I would like record the conversation with their permission or whatever, and then figure out what that voice sounds like, and then figure out how to get your voice there, because so much of who we are follows our voice. Like, and this is one of the things I teach with like game and stuff is like, you know, a lot of guys are like, I'm super funny. I don't know why I don't fuck chicks. Well, your funny voice is different than your like seductive, sensual voice, right? They're like, you don't. I doubt Dave Chappelle sounds the same on stage as he does in the bed, right? And so what you have to do is you have to find that place, because a lot of time our character of who we are follows how we sound, right? Like, do you speak another language?
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of. What other?
Not well, but I mean, I can speak Farsi. I can speak Azeri, which is like a Turkish dialect for mostly northern Iranians. And then I used to be fluent in Italian, but definitely don't know any of that shit anymore. And I think that's it, yeah.
So, like, did you notice that, like, when you were speaking Italian, that, like, maybe you were, like, a little different sometimes, or sounding different, kind of, like...
Well, I would try to sound Italian,
yeah. And that, like, so a lot of people say that they have, like, a different identity, the different languages they use to speak, because they sound different. It's how we relate to ourselves. So it's just like, yeah, man, I just, like, fucking find your fucking funny voice and just be like...
Yeah, no, it's a work in progress, man.
Because it probably works against how you have to sound to patients, too. That was, like, for me, like, one of the hard parts was I was getting up on stage and I was talking like this. It's not funny. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was giving my TED Talk voice. Like, blah, blah, blah. That's not fucking... People don't fuck with that. Like, they're like, why are you... Like, and so you want to get that fucking... Where they fucking like you.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it with the... commanding voice thing, because I don't feel commanding. I feel like just a meek piece of shit. Yeah. Right. But then when they hear that with the voice, like it doesn't really make sense. So it's like, what's going on up there? You know.
And also, you have an issue that kind of I have a little bit too. In that, like, dude, no one can tell what the fuck they're supposed to think about you before you get on stage. Like a fat motherfucker, they're like, oh, this is a fat motherfucker, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like some fucking like flannel shirt, like hipster motherfucker. That's that. But your identity is complex, which is going to benefit you later on. But right now, the surface layer shit, nah, because it's going to take you a while to get into who you are. Like part of like, you know, like if I'm like, sometimes the audience will be like, is this fucking dude bullshitting? Because like I was talking about like six of the thing, all fucking real, but like it's so weird to get in. Right. Yeah, it's like, and you don't have time to unpack it that way. And if I'm not doing stand up a lot, I don't do it correctly, right? And so you're like you're a person who I think when you start doing hours, it's gonna feel a lot better than a 5-minute set. You're gonna be one of those people, because it's like you have a lot of different shit to talk about. That's how do I reduce all of that to like a you know? And so like, you know, and I would look for spaces to get to that space as quick as possible. Like for you, I would definitely do Edinburgh next year, and I'll talk to you about how to like do all that. Like, but like it's like do a show out there and do an hour. You're gonna be like, oh fuck.
How are you supposed to do an hour?
Oh, like literally. I went to Edinburgh.
Just ask somebody like, "Hey, you mind if I use this space for an hour and somehow fill it with people?"
Yeah, that's exactly what you do. That's exactly how Edinburgh works. That's exactly that. Literally, and you go out there, you fucking hustle, you get people out to the fucking show. You have to do it every day, and you have a dope name for your show or whatever, so people will naturally buy tickets and shit. But yeah, I was like out there every day, fucking hustling for a show. Me and my friend Brendan Lemon, and his was the profit of doing. We went alternated every other day, same time every day for a fucking month. I went there with 12 minutes, ended up having a fucking pretty good hour at the end of it, and like growing as a comic and like really having people really be moved by my comedy and kind of discovering who I was in a way in which I would have never done so in Chicago or here, because I'm only getting like 5-8 minutes, maybe 15 minutes tops. And
but couldn't you make your own show here and do an hour?
I've made my own show here. Yeah. I run a show West Side, but it's still not the same. You're not gonna you don't get the everyday component. Sorry, you don't get the everyday practice, right? So when like, so for example, like Ari Shaffir, like you'll run into a lot of headliners who go out there to work out their hour, because it's like every day you're just like fucking figuring it out. Whereas even if you ran your own show here, that's like a at most weekly show, and running a weekly show here is intense. Yeah. Like, you know, there's all the shit you have to fucking worry about, and then on top of it, you're not booking anybody else, you're just relying on you. Like, that's, you know, it's just easier to go to a place where that is expected, right. That's a culture, and that you're going there specifically for that. Right.
I guess it would be probably even easier if the audience is built in enough where you could just command like, hey, I'm putting on a show up, fuckers.
Yeah,
like, that would be.
Well, there's 250,000 people who fly into Edinburgh for the thing. Have you watched Hannibal Goes to Edinburgh?
No.
Oh, okay, so like, if you want to know what it's about, watch that. It's the amazing documentary. You end up like, because you're going up on other people's shows too, so you're going up 4 or 5 times a day. Plus, you're going up on your own show for an hour, and you're fucking tired. Like at the end, bro, you're like, fuck comedy, right. You know. But like at the same time, you're getting a massively international audience, and people are there they're walking around expecting to get closed on going to a show. It's not like you're walking around in Midtown where people are like, I got a fucking job and I'm trying to fuck this bitch, blah blah blah. No, people are all there to see as many shows as possible in this time in Europe, and everybody's there to see comedy.
Right. No, that makes sense. All right, yeah, let's talk about it, man. But let's wrap this section up. It's been a little over an hour now. Why don't you tell us where we can find you one more time?
Dude, you can find me at Bill Beteet on Instagram. As honestly, all the same shit he said. And then I have a YouTube channel. It's called Frame Control right now, but I'm going to rename it. I'm in
Frame Control?
Frame Control. So it's about like...
Frame Control?
Yeah, so it's about basically controlling the perception of things in conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, and but yeah, that's it.
Gotcha. All right, man. Thanks for coming. Hey, and yeah, absolutely. And we'll do the sneaker thing, and then we'll get out of here.
All right, sounds good.
Peace.